I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. President, the General Assembly takes action on resolutions that generally fall into three groups. The first group is consensus resolutions. They emerge out of tough work. Member states coordinate their positions. Often they have to go for uneasy compromises because they understand that such collective decisions send very powerful signals. Fortunately, the majority of resolutions belong to this group. The second group is resolutions that, for some reasons, cannot be supported by some member states. As a rule, such scenarios also result from painstaking expert work. The General Assembly seeks to avoid such results because non-consensus character of such resolutions brings down the effectiveness of their implementation. And finally, there is a third, least numerous group of resolutions. It comprises resolutions that are put forward out of political considerations and have nothing to do with reality. Usually, such resolutions are supported by approximately 1/3 of member states that are guided by the bloc discipline. The majority of delegations normally either vote in abstention or take no part in the vote, thus showing their real attitude to such initiatives. As a rule, there are no expert consultations on such resolutions because those who put them forward have no objective to achieve consensus or win the majority of votes. Such resolutions have one distinctive feature. Right after their vote, the authors, in defiance of elementary arithmetic and common sense, start yelling about alleged significant support from the international community. Certainly, no one ever doubts lameness of such propositions. Today we have to do with a resolution that clearly belongs to the third group. It is hard to comprehend what goals the authors of this draft are guided by if they insist that for the second year in a row we should waste our time on considering a politicized and provocative text that is based on allegations, speculations, and distortions of fact. People of Crimea have long made their choice. Exposed to a threat of a blood-drenched massacre that was coming from nationalists who came to power in 2014, they decided to reunify with Russia. History has proven that this was a far-sighted step and the right thing to do because of people of Donbass who only proposed to Kiev to discuss some issues of concern with regard to the new state policy were welcomed by bombs, shells and bullets. As a result, the ongoing internal conflict in Ukraine has killed, wounded and badly injured thousands of people and turned millions more into refugees and IDPs. By various estimates, in Russia alone, there are from 3 to 4 million of Ukrainians who have either to live or earn their living there. This is a national tragedy, and the Maidan authorities and their Western sponsors try to hide it under the guise of mythical Russian aggression. President, the draft resolution before us is based on a barefaced lie and assertions that things look bad for Crimeans, that they are languishing against the Russian annexation and occupation. It is quite indicative that in order not to let people realise the absurdness of this Maidan propaganda, one of the resolution's provisions suggests that everyone should keep from visiting the Russian Crimea. To include this paragraph was a wise thing to do for the authors of the draft resolution, because everyone who goes to Crimea gets back with conclusions and assessments that are totally opposite to this, and that make the entire concept that the resolution rests upon collapse just like a house of cards. It would suffice just to ask the opinion of tourists who have numbered 7 million this year, 1 million of them to have come from the peninsula to the peninsula from Ukraine. They do not conceal what they think and readily share their impressions both in interviews and in social media. The content of the Ukrainian resolutional hearsay is something one would not like to dwell on, because it is a thick pack of lies and fables. Even the title is a lie. There is no problem of militarization of Crimea. Just for reference, under Russian-Ukrainian agreements, before 2014, Russia had the right to deploy up to 25,000 of military personnel in Crimea. In reality, there were only 12,000 of them against 15,000 Ukrainian. Now there are even fewer, and we openly inform the global community about it. I feel somewhat awkward about the colleagues in this room, whom the permanent mission of Ukraine is again dragging in fortuitous, politicized and provocative propaganda show. I say permanent mission of Ukraine, and I mean it because, to be frank, the true position of Ukraine is not clear to us. Today a meeting of the Normandy Quartet is held in Paris. In anticipation of this meeting, our Ukrainian colleagues did their best to create a favourable background, both in words and in deeds. Adoption of this resolution was meant to impair the constructive course of the Paris meeting. Authors of the draft took pains to take out of the closet all the skeletons that Ukrainian electorate had decided to commit to history when they voted for President Volodymyr Zelensky and his party. The President of Ukraine, by the way, told us and all the others many positive and inspiring things in the course of preparation for today's meeting. In any case, what he said is absolutely incompatible with the spiel that the mission of Ukraine now puts to your consideration. A question keeps popping up. Whose instructions do our Ukrainian colleagues carry out? Those of the Ukrainian people who are firmly committed to rapprochement with Russia and peace in their country, or those of the party of war that does not wish to give up its positions and therefore keeps Ukraine in a state of chaos, civil war, misery and poverty? Dear colleagues, we would like you to ask these questions to yourselves. That is why we asked to put to the vote the draft resolution proposed by Ukraine, Western countries and their satellites. In order not to have any doubts ever to the falsehood of the allegations, we ask you to vote against the resolution. Neither us nor the Crimeans have anything to conceal, but we have very much to be proud of. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation, and I now give